This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. Joined today by Luke Combs down in way South Texas. Also here is Seth Morris, Chili's here, and our very own Chester the Divester, who hasn't been on the show as much lately since relocation.
Yep, been in Wisconsin, bought a home, fixed it up, had a kid, another one.
Damn, Chester.
We've been busy.
Dang, double dipping.
What we were talking about before we began was we were talking about the problem of Luke was saying that he's not there yet on his old man losing his. I don't even have the vocabulary for this.
Needing readers.
Needing readers.
Yeah. Yep.
And I wanted to share this. I wanted to share it for the audience in general. So I told Luke.
I appreciate that. But
it's a thing. You're not there yet.
Not there yet.
But you were talking about, but you now and then.
I find myself doing the squinty thing where you're like, or it like looks like you're like almost kind of trying to smell something. You're like, and
do you head bob? Do you do a little in out?
No, I don't do it. No, I haven't done that yet, unless I haven't picked up on it.
When I first realized it was happening to me, I found that over your whole life, okay, if you go to like pick a sliver out of your kid's foot or read something that someone's showing you, like a pamphlet, I don't know what the hell, someone hands you something to read, your body knows right where to put that son of a bitch.
Interesting.
Because it's the same decade after decade, right? So your kid gets a sliver. You know right where you want their foot.
Right, to see it.
All of a sudden, for me, it wound up being that I would go to my normal spot.
And that wasn't working.
And you couldn't see it.
Right? Like your sort of your brain hasn't even adjusted to the fact that it happened yet. You'd go to your normal spot and it wasn't right, and then you had to search for the right spot.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't considered that.
Does your body know now? The spot?
It's better, but it changed it for a while there, like 44 years old, whatever the hell. It was changing so fast, my brain couldn't adjust quick enough.
It makes sense. Like if I go to look at my watch, there's a certain like
where you want
spot that I go, but then if there's there's different stuff on the dial that you can look at, and there's somewhere I'm like, what is that? So like if I want to, like I gotta kind of get it at a certain like spot if I want to check out the little tiny words on there or whatever.
There's nothing you can do about it. Man, this is gonna be like, Luke, you got to bear with us here. This is going to be a test case in how to lose listeners.
Okay.
They tell you don't talk about religion.
Yep.
Politics.
Yep.
You fixing to do both?
Well, no.
You're going all those places.
No.
Dude.
Religion, politics, and then the finer details of wild turkey management.
I don't agree with that.
Really? I don't agree with that. I think there's a very interested population.
Okay.
I think it's niche. I think it's a subculture, but I do think the people that are interested are going to be super interested.
Yeah,
I do think that.
You know what I was going to do? What I want to do too, Luke, later when we turn the show over to our intense focus on you, Luke, is I wanted to bring up with you. The other day yesterday I was telling you I have to do it. I'm not going to do it because it's secret. Mm-hmm. But I was telling you at some point I need to do the worst thing that could happen to a musician is to come to you and say, hey, I got a song idea.
Yes, we did discuss this.
Yeah, and I didn't do it.
You did? No,
and I can't do it now because then the whole world's going to write this song. And it's not my song idea.
That's true. But now people are going to wonder, though.
Well, let me throw you a different tidbit right here.
Okay.
You ready for this?
I'm ready.
My buddy Pat Durkin was telling me how my buddy Pat Durkin was telling me how at his age, when he takes on, like, he starts to think about if he's taking on a big writing project, he's like, enters the back of your head. It's like, am I really going to be doing this?
What do you mean?
Career-wise. You know what I mean? Like, at a certain point, like, if someone says, like, hey, do you want to take on a large project? You'd be like, shit, I don't know. I'm pretty old. I don't want to take that on.
How it's pretty old, though, dude. What are we talking here?
I don't think he's
late 60s.
I don't think he's pretty old.
He just made a comment.
Yeah.
This is all build up to the song idea.
Okay.
It's a different song.
Okay. Different song I do. Wait,
And
there's
he said
multiple.
he was telling his friend, well, I can't tell you the one because it's Mo's idea.
Got it.
I ran it by Chili. Chili?
I mean, my first when he said Mo has an idea for Luke about a song.
No. Just like an idea.
Yeah, when you first said that, like that's how you started. I was like, I'm not a country music star, but I was skeptical about
because his
you
problem
being
was there was no words or music.
Yeah, but
that can present a massive challenge in the world of music for sure.
And then he told me the idea, and I was like, I've heard a lot worse ideas.
It's a great idea.
But I'll obviously let him.
Usually, if someone
in
says
private.
Usually, if you run an idea past someone and they say, "I've heard worse,"
that's good.
That means it ain't good.
Well, no,
you think that's
means
like
it's good? Way good.
I've heard worse. I think it's how you say it.
I was telling my kid recently. I'm gonna get to this, but I was telling him recently. We're talking about, he's getting of the age, where there's like boyfriends and girlfriends. I'm like, dude, when I was a kid in high school, the worst thing they could say, like the worst thing girls could say, he's nice.
Oh yeah.
Now,
I got
if
a
they
few of
said
those in high school.
if they said he's funny, that was a good sign.
Yeah,
But he's nice. Like, you gotta be nice.
Brutal.
Like, don't take me wrong.
Yeah,
but like at a time, it was like if someone says like, "Oh, I think you're nice," you're like, "Yeah,
yeah, friend zone."
I feel the same way when someone calls me cute at 30. When a girl calls me cute,
no, that's a good sign."
I'm not. I don't know. I just feel the same.
I could
way.
see that. I could see how that could be a mixed bag.
Yeah,
I could see how you could go either way.
Yeah.
So here's this hit.
Okay, I love it.
Okay, and listen, man, it's not like I haven't thought it through as much. In fact, I had it in my notes of something I thought was funny, and I don't even think about it being a great song.
Right.
Till now.
Great song, hit song, great song. Man,
Pat Durgan's talking about bringing up to a friend. I don't know if I even want to take a big project on at my age, And his friend said, some weeks I wonder if I should be starting a new trash bag.
Starting a new trash bag.
Meaning, is he even going to be alive long enough to fill a trash bag?
Oh.
God, that's real sad. That's not a lot of time. That's like half a day.
They scrapped that song.
Yeah.
I don't want that song idea to color the other song. I wish I had said it. I blew my chance. Like, who in a pitch meeting comes in and starts with the loser?
You kind of came to with like real excited, like you got into that. Like I knew that when the idea was coming because your voice got like real pumped about it. You were like, yeah, so he was talking about this, I don't want to do this. And then at my age, I didn't even want to start a trash bag yet. And it's like,
oh my God, I broke pitch meeting rule number 1, man. Like, you always come in with the hot one.
You come in with the good
idea.
And
then if they're like, if you find the audience is losing, you're losing the audience, then you start throwing wild shit out there, But you come in with the refined one.
Luke was saying you start a song with a title, so... And then,
I do from time to time.
Trash bag.
No, that's the other song.
Yeah, trash bags.
All the other song has is a title.
Yeah, that's all that one has. That one doesn't even have a title, dude. The other one's at least farther down the line than that,
Okay, now we're gonna talk about turkey regulations. And Luke, you've had some observations about turkey regulations, but we're gonna get serious here for a minute because the reason these turkey regulation things are of interest is because I think that we're seeing. Anyone in the country is interested in turkey hunting. I think this is all relevant to your life because I think there's a trend emerging, and we've touched on this before on the show. There's a trend emerging that turkey numbers in America, like when you get into the future, we're going to look at turkey numbers in America, just in a general America sense, as being like this precipitous always means down, or can it be a precipitous incline?
Oh, dude, that's author stuff. Dude.
Yeah, you're
I have
asking the
no
wrong
idea.
folks.
Wrong crowd, dude. Wrong crowd.
If you look at like turkey trends, you're going to see the 90s come in. We're going to get to the 1990s.
1990s, right.
And you're going to see just like turkey numbers just, we're talking in 100 years when they make a chart showing turkey numbers in this country. They're going to be like in the 90s with all the reintroductions and introductions, early 2000s, right? It's just going to be like boom, boom, boom. That's the noise of climbing.
Boom, boom, boom.
Climb.
It's the roller coaster going up.
And it's going to hit like the heyday of turkey hunting. And I don't know, Clay Newcomb, maybe he'd be able to tell you where like in Arkansas where he's at. I think Dr. Mike Chamberlain would be able to tell you the official like peak moment. And then it's down.
Sure.
And it'll go down, and I don't know that anyone knows where it's going to
end
level.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that yesterday. It's like we feel like it was like, man, a couple, I don't know, is it like 6 or 7 years ago? It was like smashing, dude. I mean, in Tennessee, you could kill 4 birds.
Yep.
In Tennessee.
Now, are you talking? This is nationwide.
Yeah, because there's always outlier things, but I'm just saying, like, if you go to some of those areas that became, if you go to some of those states that became just like early famous turkey states, like places that always had pretty good turkey hunting, but just blew up, like Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, right? Where turkey numbers just went crazy.
Yeah.
And then this whole, it's kind of appearing to be like death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. And it's going to like lower turkey numbers, but there's actually terms for this. And there's terms for this in biology. There's terms for this phenomenon. There's one guy calls it founder effect. There's other names, but when you bring in a new population of animals and introduce them, they explode. They explode because they're coming in and like they're occupying a niche that wasn't occupied on the landscape. That's really good for them. Predators aren't tuned into them yet. You might be moving in a group of animals that is disease-free, and they might contract local diseases or become impacted by diseases over time.
Right.
So when you bring something in, it's just like the general truth of it is they take dramatically and shoot up, and then predators over time are like, hey, oh, I figured out how to kill these things. What you do, right, in April, I know to go look in that brushy shit, and it's full of eggs, right? And it takes them a while to figure out how to do that, and then all this stuff happens, and you lose. So what you're seeing right now is, and again, this is just generally, what you're seeing right now across the country is like generally game management agencies, generally speaking, tightening way up
Yeah.
on turkey harvest. So we talked about, I got to put on my spectacles.
Doesn't seem like it down here, though.
I got a thing on my phone of song ideas. I got to pull it up.
Just got to find that right spot.
Yeah.
Okay, let me find this thing here. We talked about South Carolina on a recent podcast episode during our Turkey Week, and let me see here, and got a guy real mad at us. Here it is. We're talking about South Carolina, how they have done, and this is another thing that happens. In South Carolina, you used to be able to shoot jakes. Okay?
Yep. No, you can't.
And South Carolina says, no more jakes. And on the show, we kind of laughed about, I observed on the show, I was like, if you really want to save like breeding age birds, you'd make it illegal to shoot longbeards. But of course you can't do that because that's not what anybody. That piss everybody off. No one wants that. So you're like being like, yeah, no one's that excited about shooting jakes. Maybe we'll make it that you can't shoot jakes and it'll help. And we handle. Well, a guy wrote in who was livid about our handling of this. Okay. Says the MeatEater podcast came out. They brought up our new turkey laws and completely fucked up the explanation. They harp on the jake ban and say our purpose of the jake ban is to increase breeding and beat on us. That makes no sense. But here's some other things that's happened in South Carolina. They already did change the season dates. They made the season start later and they made it shorter. They lowered the bag limit. Okay. In addition to this,
Tennessee's done this as well.
So South Carolina first went in. So the statewide season now starts April 3rd. Previously, half the state started March 22nd and half started April 1. So in part of the state and half the state, they moved the season to 12 days later because the thinking is states are killing turkeys too early and it's impacting breeding. Yep. And there's like we mentioned there's this kind of emerging idea in turkey management. It'd be like hunt them as long as you want on the other end of the season, or hunt them longer on the other end of the season and stop hitting them
right at the beginning.
Early,
right at the beginning.
Right.
So he said they not only did that, there was a recommendation that the entire state should be April 10. But the legislature didn't go for it. Before April 10, where it is open early, you're only allowed one bird. They used to run 2 staggered 40-day seasons. So they used to have 50 total days of turkey hunting season because they managed the state in 2 chunks. So they used to have a 50 total days of season. They dropped it to 31 days of season. Lowered the overall bag limit from 3 turkeys to 2 turkeys. So, point being, I'm still dying. I was dying when we talked about this originally from a cough. Point being, they've done a ton in South Carolina to suppress turkey harvest.
Yeah, and I think that's happening in a lot of places.
Another one we talked about that we didn't get right. This is like the correction section. We were talking about in Florida. Every state, no matter where you're from in every state, you always hate out-of-staters.
It's generally true.
Yeah, no one wants,
right.
No one driving around hunting wants to see an out-of-state plate. You hate them.
True.
Yeah, you just hate them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's more of a Montana thing. Sounds more Montana.
Well, it's Florida, big time. And I'll explain.
Really?
Florida, they hate them. So Richard Martinez, who I've hunted with in Florida, wrote into correction. Florida was considering this new thing where on certain wildlife management areas, so certain public land areas, residents get first cracks. So you wind up having 2 seasons. Resident turkey season, non-resident turkey season. Which again, that's their call, man. I don't even think a non-resident even has a place to complain about it because wildlife's managed at the state level.
Right.
So he says, here's what he says. He says, I want to clarify that the rule banning non-residents actually landed at 9 days because public feedback said boning non-residents by 3 days isn't boning them enough. They want to bone them
more, dude.
3 times worse.
Yeah.
However, it only applies to 5 management areas. Those management areas being over-the-counter management areas.
That makes sense.
Yep. If it's a draw management area, this is what I was saying where you really start losing
And
listeners.
this is public?
Public management areas. You could see some dude driving along with his wife, right? And he's like, hey, I want to check out MeatEater podcast,
And it's getting,
And
it's
then,
getting
and
this
then
deep.
now he's like hoping something good happens. His wife's gonna like settle in, you know.
Yeah.
And then she's sitting there, you know what I mean?
It hasn't
and
happened
and
yet.
then then now we're like, well, it was gonna be 9 days, you know, it was 3
Yeah.
days, and it's actually 9 days.
And then
he's
she's
getting
like,
I
"Oh
might
man,"
as
he's like, "Well, now hold on, that's only in the over-the-counter WMAs, right?" It's like
and now he's like,
Yeah.
dude, I might as well just change it down to something. She
the
wants to listen
limited
to.
draw WMAs are a totally different story. We're gonna get into that in the next half hour.
It's
Yeah,
like, no. We'll keep listening.
yeah.
He's like, just hang in a minute, you know,
He's like,
'cause
this
then
is
they're
gonna
start
get
talking-
good.
They're gonna start talking to
Yeah.
Luke.
Yeah.
Luke's gonna be like, I'd like to offer a few finer points on it.
Yeah.
So he goes on. It's not over yet. This new staggered turkey hunting season thing. And again, I'm only bringing this up because this is like wildlife management stuff that will, wherever you live, will wind up impacting you because states learn from each other. Right? Like states try stuff and it's effective and other states pick it up. Like they don't live in little vacuums. And so in figuring out how do you allocate resources and how do you do things, these are all like little playbooks. And this idea of having, everyone's familiar with looking at a regs and being like, oh, I'm a non-resident, I got to buy extra shit that's extra expensive. Or I'm a non-resident, I can, have a lower bag limit than a resident. Like I'm only allowed 1 turkey, but a resident can kill 5. What's up with that? But to enter it, this new thing, if it's emerging, is, oh, I'm a resident. I start hunting on this day. My deer opening date
Right.
is this day. And I got 10 days, and then the non-residents show up. It's like this will become, if it's effective, it'll become.
Where does
More-
the
In Montana, I'd rather have it go the other way.
Yeah, that they got to quit.
That like non-residents get like the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
just for turkeys or for
For deer.
everything?
Yeah.
No,
everything.
for turkeys, I'd want the top end.
Yeah, I would want top end of turkeys, but I'm
The
speaking
bottom end of
mostly.
deer.
Now we're
mostly
picking
deer.
it. Now we're picking and choosing.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, here I'll tell you a little something. This will give you a little insight into my inner psychology. Is whenever another state bones non-residents, I get a little agitated.
But when your state does,
When my
it, you're
state
like,
bones non-residents, I get excited.
Get everyone out. Do you think? And this is all speculative stuff, but like, do you think there's ever a point where states are just like, nah, man, no, turkey wise, like, or any species wise,
That they'll do what?
to where they could potentially just go, we don't want any non-resident hunters at all,
What?
unless you maybe own your own land or something.
Yeah.
You went for a non-resident.
Yeah.
wise.
If you went to the hunters, that'd be widespread. But from the agency's perspective, they can't because the money.
Yeah.
right.
All their because they most states, like, this is something that isn't as widely, it's definitely not widely known in the public, right, at all. Like hunters know this, but in the public it's not widely known, is state game agencies in most states, they handle everything like law enforcement, disease prevention, habitat improvement, all this stuff. Like their money comes
From that.
licenses and stamps.
Yep.
So when they can go and like, you get your turkey license for $30 or something, but then you get all these dudes that are paying hundreds to hunt turkeys, and then hunters are like, no more non-residents. The agency is like, easy, dude.
You're like, well, we kind of want those guys.
Like we lose,
Yeah,
like
we'd
we'll
to have
lose
them.
we have no funding if we can't sell non-resident tags.
Yeah.
So what he's saying here that goes on is there's this place called Big Cypress National Preserve. I've been down there, I was down there with a turkey hunter, but I didn't hunt turkeys there. Excuse me, fellas. Opening weekend, twice as many non-residents as residents. Partly because you hunt Osceola so damn early.
I think
Dudes are like, I can go hunt Florida.
Yep.
Seth did this, son of a bitch.
Yep.
He's
Part
like,
of the-
I can
part
go
of the
hunt-
problem, dude.
Part of the problem.
Seth's
I can
part of
hunt
the problem,
Florida
yeah.
and still get home for my own opening day.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you go take someone else's resources, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Florida, Texas, Montana's not even open yet.
Yep. So in that unit where they got twice as many non-residents, this is a little hot tip alert. If you live in Florida,
Don't let Seth come on.
no, that was the hot tip.
That's not a hot tip.
If you live in South Florida, next spring, when you go down to Big Cypress on opening day, you can expect to see a 2/3 reduction in pressure.
Wow.
2/3 reduction in pressure.
I'd be excited if I was a resident.
Now, here's another one. I think this is it for turkey rules. Is there one more turkey rule? Oh, no, there's one more. This is turkey dark. We're covering turkey dark spots, like bad turkey stuff. Or, and then we're going to get positive and light. It's like a gospel sermon. Where
You break them down to build them up.
you go down, you get in the dark, and then you come out of the darkness. Where was I? Oh, we're coming out of the darkness now. Sorry.
Okay.
Do you guys remember when Florida had their bear hunt and just got beat up by
People not wanting a bear season.
Well, what happened in Florida is it's a great story. We talked about it in the past, but like Florida had no bear hunting for a long time. Their numbers got real low, and all of a sudden it's got like many places going to this kind of general trend right now. And I was talking about turkeys down, black bears up.
Yeah.
Up, 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 up.
Yep.
Up everywhere for the most part.
So Florida does this quota hunt. Seth, can you mind pulling up real quick what year Florida did their bear hunt? It was some years ago now. Very contentious. All the animal rights people just bent out of shape about Florida doing this bear hunt. They decided to do a quota hunt, not a limited draw hunt, not a limited tag draw.
Right. It's just like
a cap.
Everybody go out, and once this many have been tagged, it's over. Right.
And because they hadn't had a bear season in so long, they had no idea about what efficacy rates would be like. And they put in that as they approach the cap, there's a 24-hour lag, meaning it's like, let's say you're like drawing down on a bear at let's say the cap gets hit at 7:50 a.m. on the second day, and at 7:52 a bear walks out and you shoot the bear. Is it like, did you just break the law?
Because there's no way you could have known.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was open from 1930 to 1994. It closed until 2015 for one season, and then it closed again.
Yep. And can you pull up what the quota was?
Yeah.
The story is they way overshot the quota.
Like how much?
Like he'll pull it up. The quota got hit, and then people had like 24 or 48 hours, or whatever.
And
by the time it was done,
stuff. Right.
So I shouldn't say half. People that know a lot about wildlife management looked at this and they're like, man, a lot more bears than we thought. It must be a lot of bears. Everybody else looked at it like, they killed all the bears.
Right.
And it was just done. Public sentiment was like that they blew it. They ruined it. They had no idea what they're doing. They killed way more bears than the quota.
Yeah.
And they haven't hunted bears since 2015. What are you finding?
I'm pretty sure that happened with wolves in Wisconsin too.
So
we were talking about that last night.
It's broken into 4 different management units.
Mm-hmm.
East Panhandle, North, Central, and South. And then there's harvest objectives, which is East Panhandle 40, North 100, Central 100, South 80.
And what they wind up with? 6 something or
so East Panhandle was 40, actual was 114. But
Man,
North was 100, actual 25.
Oh.
Central 100, actual 143.
Okay.
And then South 80, actual 22.
Oh.
So they didn't really go over then.
Wasn't even that bad. Well, in some spot they went over and it pissed everybody off. Anyhow, I was sitting there one time with a guy. I don't want to name his name.
Okay.
But I'm sitting there in Florida, and I wound up in a house of a commissioner
Okay.
who grew up did all kinds of hunting. And the commissioner was telling me he voted against that bear hunt. I was like, why? Just worried about public opinion.
Right. Exactly.
That was he like laid it out, sitting talking to me face to face that he voted against it because he's worried about public backlash. Nothing to do with bears. Worried about public opinion on him.
Right.
Now, Florida's getting ready to take another shot. Florida's getting ready for another shot at a bear hunt. This is from Richard Martinez. You know what he does for a living? Take a guess.
I don't know.
Throw something out there.
I mean, I'm guessing that it's. I'm not gonna guess it. Probably
Just
musician.
no. He's
Really?
an art mover.
Oh, so close. I was closer than I thought. Really. You know?
Like if you buy a really expensive piece of art and you need it shipped from the where you bought it from to you,
Sure.
Richard Martinez.
So he's runs a niche shipping business to some extent.
Another way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's an interesting business. You know.
Mhm. It is. You get to see art, you get to handle it.
I think about that a lot. I'm like, there's so many niche jobs that exist that we wouldn't even think of. Like as I drive into places sometimes, I'm going like, look at all the people that live here. Like what all these people are doing some kind of job. Like it's not like when you think of all the jobs in your head.
Yeah.
Like off the top of your head.
Like my kids.
There's so many more than
Detective.
those. You're like astronaut, detective, firefighter, police officer, restaurant person, and then that's like done.
Yeah,
That covers it.
Yeah, that's it, dude. I don't think about like the guy that's like manufacturing like the insulated foam inside of a airplane liner, but like that's the thing that's happening, dude.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And then he's got the kind of people that have jobs that they didn't know that was a job until they applied for it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit, that's a thing? I'll do that.
They're like, yeah, I could pull that off,
That's what I did at MeatEater.
There
yeah,
you
that's
go.
right, Chili.
That's the thing I just applied. Yeah.
At the December commission meeting, the commission requested, I'm back to Florida.
Okay.
This is Richard Martinez telling me about what's going on in Florida. Richard Martinez is the kind of guy that if every hunter or angler in every state was like Richard Martinez, we wouldn't have any problems. Extremely dedicated, very successful, but also very involved in all this kind of stuff.
Right. Interesting.
Very involved in policy and like making his statements and having his voice be heard and talking to other hunters and like what are people's concerns? How do we address the concerns? How do we improve the resource? Mm-hmm. He's got a job, he's got a family, wife, whatever, but at the same time he demonstrates like an exceptional level of curiosity and involvement with his area. And he's not one of those, blaming everybody for everything all the time.
They took our jobs.
He's not sitting all bitter, he's not sitting all bitter, right?
They took our toms, dude,
Yeah. Take
So
Tom's.
at the December Florida Game Commission meeting, the commission requested staff to put together a proposal for a hunt next season. Staff will present their proposal at the May 21st meeting in Ocala. Is that a place? Must be.
Ocala, yeah.
We're encouraging everyone in support of the hunt to attend.
That's a good way to like make the protesters kind of swell the numbers, like the people that come to protest, you're like, well, these guys showed up. They must want the bear hunt to go on.
Oh.
Everyone that's in support of the thing is going to attend.
Yeah, like
and you're like, look how many people showed up for this bear hunt, dude.
Yeah, if you're there,
and then no signs, by the way.
If you're
No one
there
can bring
for
any
the bear
signs in.
hunt, stand right next to and act like you're with someone that's there against it and yell real loud.
Yeah.
I'd be like, those two fellas right there are excited.
Yeah, man, look at those guys. Those guys are pumped about it.
That whole little group.
Yeah, everyone there supports bears in one way or another. If you're in support of bears, doesn't matter which side you stand on, show up to the event.
Yeah.
You know, come support the bears.
Last thing, I mentioned Dr. Michael Chamberlain. He's a wild turkey expert.
The wild turkey dog. I met him.
Yeah,
He's
wild
been-
turkey dog.
He's
Oh,
been
you
to
met
the
him?
show. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
Fantastic
Awesome
guy.
Yep.
If you go way back in the archives, Chamberlain's been on the show once or twice. He did one of my favorite episodes ever, and he explained when they were doing a turkey predation study in this area, where they went in and they wanted to see the whole inner workings of the complex of wildlife, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they would put collars on everything. They went into this area to do, like, they had all these collared turkeys or some kind of track. I think they glue a tracking mechanism on a turkey. They glue it to its back feathers. And they went in and they put collars on, like, raccoons, coyotes, whatever. They wanted everybody in town to be wearing a thing to see how they're all interacting. Mm-hmm. And then when a turkey gets killed, when you get a mortality signal from your turkey, you can go in and try to figure out what happened to the turkey. But also, you also know where your other collared stuff has been hanging around. One of the favorite wildlife studies that I like to cite, and I've brought it up 1,000 times, I'll bring it up again now. They did one of these in Alaska one time where they tried to come into town and basically collar everybody. They had a collared moose fall into a crevasse in a glacier. One of the grizzlies that was wearing one of their collars climbed in there to eat on it, got stuck and died in there with the moose. One of their wolverines that had a collar on it got in there and ate on the carcass and lived. So they had this whole collar interaction that you can watch. Well, Chamberlain was talking about when they did, if you go back and listen to this episode, he tells it in great detail. They did one of these and they had a breeding pair of great horned owls come into their area. And he said you couldn't keep a collar alive on anything when those owls showed up. They killed everybody.
Really?
You know, they killed everybody. And they'd smoke those turkeys. Like when spring gobblers, when a gobbler gets up in the kind of half light, gobbling up in his roost tree, he's got a bullseye on him.
I wonder
to a great horned owl.
I wonder why though, because they're not like eating the turkeys, are they? Are the owls
yeah.
eating
Oh
them?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, he said they'll blast them so hard.
The only reason I say that is because my parents had a bunch of chickens killed by the owls, and they weren't even eating them.
Oh, just kill them for the hell of it?
Yeah. Anyways,
Well,
Just didn't like them.
you know what? Maybe they, if I remember, I could be screwing it up. But what he talked about, the thing that tickled me about it, is he said that great horned owl smokes that turkey so hard out of a tree when you go out there. The turkey's laying way off from the tree, but its feathers running from the tree because he hits them. Bam!
Like full speed, like knocks them out.
Blasts them out of that tree. Mike Chamberlain. They are doing so they're getting ready to work on this project. A DNA project with wild turkeys. All right. We had a researcher on the podcast one time who's working on a duck DNA program. And the duck DNA program, to refresh people's memories, the duck DNA program is looking at these kind of like fake ducks that game farms put out in certain areas. I didn't even really know this was a thing, but like in the East, it's a thing like guys that have like these little duck hunting spots and they take clients out. They're just raising mallards. I had no idea.
heard of this. I haven't heard of this.
You know, like doing that with pheasants. All
yeah,
over the
for
place.
sure. I mean, that's pretty common.
It's a thing with ducks. I didn't even know this was a thing. Someone told me once, but I didn't really put
And where
it
is
together.
it? Where's it happening?
Like I know it happens a lot in Chesapeake Bay.
Interesting.
I think they're doing it a bunch in Ontario. You raise ducks in a pen,
Right.
and then you just kind of get them set up in your little area, and then guys come out and like pretend to hunt the ducks.
We didn't pretend to hunt.
Well, they hunt them, but
they're
yeah, it's just like
they're just kind of like
they're just around.
pet ducks almost.
What happened was, in one time I was down hunting Sika deer in Maryland,
It's on my
and we're
bucket
going
list.
over a bridge.
Bucket list hunt for me.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, well.
I had plans to do it. I had a trip planned to go do it, and this was probably probably right at the end of 2020, going into, I think it was going to be in January of 21.
Yep.
And I think I ended up like getting COVID or something.
You should take this up with me in a little while, and we have had just a fantastic time doing that, and I have someone I would like to introduce you to.
We got hooked up through my bus driver grew up there.
Oh, yeah.
In Maryland. So I think it was actually
You still got the same bus driver?
Yeah, still got him. Yep, Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Larry guy, he's a man.
He's a good dude.
He's a great guy. And yeah, so he knew some folks that had access from where he grew up and stuff. So, but I think it would have been when you guys went and did that hunt on MeatEater was the first time that I had seen that.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I got it. This before before I had been on the show or we knew each other. And I reached out. I asked Larry. I was like, "Hey, man, you know anything about these?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, man." He said, "We got those things all over the place."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh,
dude, so fun.
How do I do that?" He's like, I just call my buddies from high school, and you go up there and do it." I'm like, "Oh, cool."
It is one of the easiest eaten deer in the world, man.
Really?
Oh my God, they're good. You can just take the front legs. Like, you can't do this with any kind of thing. You take the front legs and put it in a smoker and pick it apart.
Really?
Yeah. Anyways, we're down there hunting Sika deer, and it was the fall, right? And I remember going over a bridge on this little slough or whatever, and there's just mallards everywhere under the bridge, and they weren't like laid out like how it's just something was weird about it. And I even said to my buddy, I'm like, I can't believe all these mallards. And he goes, "Oh no, those are release birds," because they were just like arranged in the like
odd
under
way.
the bridge and like arranged in a way that just didn't look like what ducks would do.
Yeah.
So this duck DNA program is these ducks that these guys are putting out are breeding with wild mallards, and their offspring act weird. Their offspring don't know when to migrate, don't know where to migrate. They don't behave right. They get predated on at a way high rate. They're stupid. Mm-hmm. And so they're doing this DNA project to find out, well, these guys that are dumping these birds out, that they're then breeding with wild mallards and impacting all kinds of things about mallard biology.
It doesn't seem like that would be legal.
The whole thing surprised the hell out of me. It's a big thing for these guys. They big thing for them to be able to want to do it. So they did this DNA project. Well, they're launching into a new DNA project on turkeys, where they're going to be nationwide. Hunters are going to have a chance to submit. We'll keep you informed on how this works. They're going to have a chance to submit turkey DNA, and here's what is of interest to them. You know, when you're looking on social media, whatever, during turkey season, everybody's got all their crazy turkeys, and you're seeing dudes that got like wild colored turkeys, or this has happened to me. You're like, there's a flock of turkeys going by, and there's a white one in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or people that will say, "Oh, I like hunting in Kansas because you can kill an Eastern and a Rio together." And you're kind of, what the hell does that mean? Well, doing a big turkey DNA project where hunters all over can send in a sample, and then they can map out, because one of the things they're looking at is like all these weird color phases. Where are they coming from? Mm-hmm. And probably like is it like heritage breeds of turkeys? Is it farm turkeys? But the thing that makes this interesting to think about is like, if you're sitting there picturing what is the original, like you take a cow, okay, like cattle. What did cattle come from? Cattle came from a wild animal called the oryx. Or sheep, domestic sheep I think they came from mouflons. Horses came from a Siberian steppe horse. So now when you see like a horse standing in someone's pasture, you're watching like the Indianapolis, what do they call that thing? Big horse race?
Kentucky Derby.
Kentucky Derby.
Indianapolis, you know.
Kentucky Derby.
Daytona 500.
And you're like, what is this animal? Like, I've looked at that horses my whole life. You ever ask yourself, well, what did it come from?
Sure.
All right, it's an animal like the Eurasian steppe was like that animal. When you look at cows and all the breeds of cows, you're like, what the hell did they come from? It came from a wild animal called oryx. All pigs, a big pink farm pig, they're all called Sus scrofa, Suscrofa. Sus scrofa is like the ancestral wild pig. All pigs came from the ancestral wild pig. They're all still called Sus scrofa. It's all one species. What's cool about turkeys is a rare thing, is a rare domestic that if you went to Poland, just pulling that out of thin air, if you went to Poland and there's some white turkey standing there, that turkey is a descendant of our wild turkey. Like when the Spanish came and, quote, discovered America, they got wild turkeys, which had been domesticated by indigenous people, brought wild turkeys back to Europe, turned them into all these crazy turkey breeds, and then brought them back here again. Right?
Right.
So, like, all turkeys on the whole planet come from
here.
Turkeys.
Right.
So they're trying to, maybe puts together some map of how this all went down.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
So we'll keep people focused.
You might be on the MeatEater Live soon, right? The turkey doc, I think. Corey
Is he
was
coming
saying.
on? Maybe he's going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Luke, you know how in I don't know, certain disciplines, we were talking about having all kinds of jobs before.
Mm-hmm.
In certain disciplines, work will interfere with one's ability to do their hunting and fishing.
Yes.
Like a friend of mine, he's a MLB baseball player, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this thing that happens, like if they don't make the playoffs, it's game on.
For deer hunt.
And if you make the playoffs, you're screwed.
But
so I said,
you
well,
also
do you ever
like,
hope you don't make the playoffs so you can deer hunt? And he says, no, that's not a thing that I hope.
Yeah.
Like you don't, it's like it's sort of it's not what you want to happen, but when your season ends, you do start deer hunting, but you never hope your season ends to go deer hunting because that would mean you weren't probably an MLB player.
Right.
You were something different. How in your world, how do you try to line up tour? Like, are you aware? Are you like, man, I can't tour during deer season? Or do you just do work first and then pick up where you pick up?
This current calendar year is the first year I've done that.
Really?
I was supposed to do a set of shows, I won't say which, a set of shows in November that have now already been completed because I was like, I don't want to do that in November.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you tell people what you were thinking?
Oh yeah. I mean, I just literally told them, I was like, no, that's the middle of deer season. I'm not going to do that. Because I haven't had a really great deer season in, 6 or 7 years. Because we're always touring heavily. So it hasn't been as bad the last couple of years because we've been playing in NFL stadiums. And obviously, you can only really do that during the off season, and obviously NFL's really kicked up in the fall, so you can't play those venues in the fall because they don't do anything other than their stuff in the fall. Usually, barring some weird scenario or something. But so yeah, we hadn't had to worry about it, and this year it was like, hey, do you want to go do this international stuff? So it's not only.
Oh.
It would be different if it was like, hey man, do you want to go do 3 weekends in November and do shows on Friday and Saturday? It'd be like, sure, that'd be fine. Because, I could go, I could hunt at home, or I could go hunt somewhere for a few days and then go back on the road or something. But it was going to be, it was going to be overseas. So it just miss the whole deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, at this point, I'm just not willing to do that. Now, the shows have already been done. We did the shows. We just moved them to a different time.
Got it.
And so it's not really like, I've never canceled any shows to hunt. No. And I never would.
So do you look at it if you start to manipulate if you start to like manage your music career around your desire to be outside, is that a sign that like is that a sign where you're like, man, I've like arrived, that I can actually start to manipulate my thing? Or is it that, man, I'm just getting of the age where I'm starting to recognize what my limits are and what's important?
I think there's a bit of both in there. I mean, I think obviously it's a super luxury to be able to do stuff like that, and it's not something that I have ever. It's never even been in the conversation until a year or two ago. It's like, well, how do we, because it felt like every year we'd get the season, and it was like, oh boy, like we're not gonna get, we're not gonna get to do the thing. And I think the difference was, before it's like now I kind of have some of my own spots too to go do some of these hunts that I want to do, because that's something that's been in my grander plan for, spending time with my kids too, right? Is to hopefully they fall in love with it as well. So I wanted to have spots where I could take them and not have to be dependent upon somebody else to invite me somewhere or, let me go somewhere, have access to their, resources or whatever it may be. So I have my own places now. So I wanted to work that into my plan of like, okay, well, eventually, this is something that I want to prioritize because it's something that I enjoy and it's an activity that I want to, do with my kids. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's just part of growing, right, and evolving as a person. And the phase that I'm in at life now is completely different than it was 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, my career was, really, really on the insane roller coaster to the absolute top, and just now it's more like now you're kind of at cruising altitude, right? And all your work is to like maintain where you are. Like it's the same amount of work, but there's not really much there's not really anywhere else to go. There is no more like, it's like an airplane can only go so far. It's like kind of reach the max altitude, and then it's like it can't really. You can't really climb anymore. You just have to maintain, right? So it takes the same amount of work that it did to get there as it does to just stay where you're at now. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so you have to kind of evaluate. We were talking about this last night sitting in the chairs. Is like, when you have kids, right? Like you only have so much bandwidth to deal with things in your life, with everything that's on your plate that you want to achieve or things that you want to do, hobbies, career. And then you throw your kid. Once you have kids, you throw that in the mix. That to me occupies a ton of space in a good way, right? It's like I want to be there for my kids. I want to be involved parent. I want to be around and help take care of them and be their dad. And so that eliminates a lot of other stuff from that you don't have the bandwidth for now, because all the space that you had before is now almost cut in half. Man. So now everything else has to fit into the half slot, and that's your job, and that's hobbies and things that you want to do, priorities that you have. Like you have to kind of reprioritize where everything else sits, because the kids and the family come first. They have to come first, and then job for me, it has to come second, So I have to and that might be 40 to 50, 40, 45% of the 100%, and family's 50, so you're left with 5%, and you're like, man, what do I, you know what I mean?
I never divided my pie out quite so carefully. That's a good way to look at it.
But you're going like, well, so then I begin to think, with the hunting stuff as well, it's something that I love, and, something I hope that my kids love and I hope to get them involved into. But we talked about it last night. Like, is it this inherently like selfish practice to want to get your kids involved into the things that you love?
Yes,
it is.
But it's done. But it's good though.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
It's dual purpose.
Yeah, it's dual purpose, right? It gives you then some of your bandwidth for family time and time spent with your kids can also be, it doesn't have to necessarily come out of the 5% that's left for you.
Mm-hmm.
It goes into the, you're getting two birds stoned at once, as I like to say. You know what I mean? And it's.
Do you remember when PETA, like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, they were trying to like get people to stop using expressions like "kill two birds with one stone"?
That wasn't a real thing.
No, it was. And it was like they're offering up alternatives. But they would have loved that one.
Yeah, get two birds stoned at once.
Get two birds stoned at once. Yeah, they're like trying to put instead of like, oh, you got your cart ahead of your horse. Well, that implies the horse has to pull a cart, which is mean.
Yeah.
So you should change it to like whatever.
Yeah.
Hell, you did a better job than they did. Just sitting there right now. I'll just take that one.
Yeah.
You know what when you thought about, is it selfish to, like, is it selfish to want to get your kids into hunting and fishing if that's what you like to do? And I've thought about that a great deal. And I don't think that I'm like overdoing it. Right. I'm having a hard time talking right now. Like, picture that you're trying to rationalize buying some stupid vehicle.
Oh, I don't have to picture that.
No, yeah, and you're like, you come up with crazy shit, right? You come up with crazy shit. You're like, wow, and really what I need it for is picture that there was a lava flow, and like we got blocked in by a terrible lava flow.
Yeah.
Well, now this vehicle would, right? And you come up with insane shit to try to justify impulses you have.
Yep.
I don't think that when you go like, well, I want to get my kids into hunting and fishing, is that selfish because that's what I want to do?
But it's also super like healthy thing.
Yes.
It's like
sing it.
It's so. There's so many things in this world that people are into themselves that getting your kids into it probably wouldn't be as healthy as getting your kids outside. In nature,
for sure. No doubt.
Away from screens.
Yeah.
Like,
selfish didn't mean necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
I think
but
it's
I
meant
thought
inherently like
right.
It's really like self-serving. Like if all your kids got way into hunting, if it's like all of them,
be the greatest thing in the world.
Exactly.
You're being a good parent.
But that would be
by
mission
doing
accomplished, dude.
Yep.
It doesn't mean you're not being a good parent. It means you're still being a good parent.
Yeah, you're doing all that. And like
those things are mutually
there's even
exclusive.
another, when I try to make the list of all things like physical activity outside all this, right? Like learning about your environment, learning about seasons, like being exposed to, life and death on the farm, right? All these positives. I also thought of this where I was thinking, whatever your passion is, I think it's productive to expose your kids to like intense enthusiasm.
That's a good way to look at it.
Like to expose your kids to like, what is it like? Demonstrate to them what it's like to just like love something.
Well,
and not just have it be the world is just this sort of.
Well, me and my wife were discussing this one night. Being a musician is such a like fickle business, and eventually everything that goes up comes down in the music business, right? Whether it's just the constraints of time, or it's like, a new generation of listeners is coming in and they're like, oh, well, that guy's old or whatever. We don't listen to that guy anymore. You know what I mean? Like you eventually, you become like kind of a like legacy act is kind of the term that's used, right?
Sure.
So me and my wife always discuss, and I'm like, sometimes if I'm having a tough day, I'll be coming through the house. I'm like, I'll just be done. Like I'm stomping around, like, like I burned my egg in the skillet, and I'm like, why don't I just quit music? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I was like joking about it, and we're sitting down talking kind of about it in a more serious way one night after we had put the kids to bed and had dinner, and as I was almost like she was almost just kind of letting me vent,
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to her, and I realized I'm like, man, like, like one, like what would I do if I didn't, what would I be doing anyways if I didn't do music? I'd be doing music. I'd just be doing it at home.
Okay.
Instead of, I would still be doing it in some ways, one. But two, it's
You
like
got a song about that.
True, I do have a song about that. And my kids are like, my sons are 2.5 and 1.5. As at the date of this recording, and it's like they've never seen me do my thing ever, dude. Like they don't know. They don't even know, dude. You know what I mean? Like they don't even.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
At their age, they have no idea.
Because like I don't want their dad, which is me, right? Like I don't want their dad, like for them to know me as like essentially like a retired guy. That's like,
no.
What did your dad do growing up? Oh, he didn't do anything. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, like I don't know. He had a job before we can like remember and stuff, but he doesn't work now.
Yeah,
he doesn't
fried
do
a
anything.
good egg though.
Gosh,
perfect.
Not even really that. He can't even really do that very well.
Mess him up every once in a while.
Yeah, he gets it stuck on the cast iron, and when he gets too impatient to preheat it right, you know what I mean? He doesn't let it heat up slow enough. But and so that ultimately was my conclusion. To my own kind of mental conflict was like, well, I don't want my kids to know like me as like a lazy guy who doesn't do anything. Like I want my kids to see me do things at a really high level and pursue the things that I set out to achieve. And I want them to see me enjoying doing that. I want them to see me struggle doing that. Like I want to expose them to all the gambit of emotions, and because, I watched my parents go through that stuff. My parents just weren't successful musicians. My dad was a maintenance man and my mom worked at the bank. And so it was like they worked so hard at a job that they didn't even love, and that taught me so much about, that led me to where I am, because my parents always pushed me to have a job that you love because we didn't, and like it's such a life hack to have a job that you love. You know what I mean? I think it's one of the biggest life hacks out there, man. You don't have to hate your job. And I think as a kid a little bit, I thought that a little bit. Because my parents didn't love their job. They didn't hate it, but it wasn't like, mom didn't wake up and go, God, I can't wait to,
get down to the bank.
Get down to the bank today and sit at the desk all day and deal with people's mortgage paperwork,
Yeah, I understand.
That just wasn't something she was excited about.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, even when I went to go into college, I'm like, well, I better get into business because I hate that. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like, I just think there's kind of this like little falsehood where no one really tells you like, hey man, you don't have to like hate work. It's not something they tell you in school, or at least from my perspective, it was just like, yeah, man, like parents come home and they bitch about work and work sucks and you're going to have to work one day. So get ready.
Yeah.
Enjoy your free time while you have it.
Enjoy your freedom.
Before you get in the suck of like having a job every day. Like you don't have to have a job you hate, I wish people would have told me that earlier on, but I learned that by watching my parents.
I wonder if that was like a sort of like a generational thing too. Like I feel like a lot of like my parents' friends have all these jobs that, they don't necessarily love doing, but they just did it because they had a family. And like maybe it wasn't as easy to go do something you love back in the day.
No, I mean, I think a lot of the reason that people do it is because they have to, man.
Yeah.
They do it for their kids.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like my dad didn't want to strap up, or my mom didn't want to strap up and go in, like, but they had to because, like, they got to like buy groceries and, they're doing it. I mean, it's a thing. I think a lot of times, at least if you're trying to be a good parent or raise your kids right, you do it out of love, right?
Did your parents have a lot for you? Did your parents have a lot of, did they like explicitly express love for you a lot when you were little?
Yeah, for sure. My mom did for sure. I mean, my dad was a little more tough exterior guy. Like he wasn't like big cuddly. Like he wasn't like it wasn't like best friend vibes. You know, my dad wasn't like, come on, little buddy, let's go down to the fishing hole and
he was
throw baseball. He was like, I work, and on the weekends I work at home because we got to mow the grass and we got to weed eat and we got to keep the house nice. And like he was like, my mom. I mean, he always told me he loved me and was proud of me and stuff. He did. So
Yep.
there was never any question about that. But it was very like, it was just kind of stern, like, you know, you need to do your stuff. You need to, you know, make sure your room's clean and make sure help your mom with whatever she needs in the house. And then, you know, mow the front. I'll do the ride and mower. And, you know, there's stuff to be done. There's things to be accomplished. You know what I mean? And, but yeah, dude, it was very kind of like healthy and normal in that sense of.
Do you have a thing where, well, I'll tell you that I do, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on it just because on parenting. I've tried hard to, like, it's kind of hard to explain. I've tried hard to demonstrate like a level of humility to my kids and a level of presence to my kids by making sure that they see me all the time doing like the mundane shit that needs to happen in running a household.
Yep.
Right, that like no one's above it.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly. I know
And
exactly
so I want them to like, especially when they're little, man. I was like, like someone needed to do it. It needed to happen, but I was like, I want them to see that you come in with a plan at a time and like you prepare dinner.
Yep.
And that like they set the table, they help clean up.
Yep.
It's like no one is above any of this shit.
No, definitely. And we have, I mean, we're even doing it, you know, obviously, you know, 2.5 and 1.5, you're limited with what you can do. But I mean, we even now, like the kids, you know, we live in a 2,000 square foot house, man. It's me, it was 2 bedrooms. Me and my wife have a room, and then the kids, the boys share a room. So it's not like we're always close together. We're always tied in there. You know, with the living room is the playroom.
Yep.
So all the kids' toys are in there. And so, and you know, they got all kinds of stuff that grandma and grandpa's bought them, and, you know, aunts and uncles and friends and stuff like that. And they play in there and we let them destroy it. But it's like every night, it's like, all right, we're all cleaning up now.
Yeah.
And mom and dad are cleaning up, but y'all are like, to the extent that a 1.5-year-old, you know, he'll get a block and bring it over, and, you know, he might only pick up 2 things. Mm-hmm. But my 2.5-year-old now, like, he can make a 5% dent in the cleanup. And he understands, dude. Like, that's, but we make it a point to go, hey man, like, you need to help us with this stuff. This is your job. You make a mess, you got to clean it up. You know, if he spills his milk, we give him a paper towel. He can't really do anything. He just smears it around.
Yep.
And, you know, we go back behind him and actually clean it up. But, you know, we make him go and, you know, he dabs the paper towel and it soaks a little bit of milk up and he throws it in the garbage. And
at that age, they don't even realize it's a chore, kind of.
Right. They're just like, oh, yeah, I get the
help.
That's pretty cool. But, like, yeah, reinforcing those things all the time. You know, I think we're also discussing this at some point yesterday, the 3 of us. But my life is so normal outside of, like, when I'm playing shows. Like, I really don't do a whole lot of anything other than I go play my shows and I come home and I spend time with my wife and my kids. Mm-hmm. And I do whatever work stuff I have to do when I'm home, whether that's writing songs, which most of the time I'm doing at my house, you know, with my friends and stuff. And I'm just there, dude. Like, I'm basically, like, in some ways, like another form of a stay-at-home parent when I'm not on the road. And even at, you know, when we're touring the stadiums, I'm only gone 3 days a week. So I'm home 4 days a week, every week, like full time, like sun up, sun down most days.
Yeah.
Like getting the kids up, changing diapers, doing baths, cooking dinners, cooking lunches, cooking breakfasts. It's like, but I want, that occupies a lot of my time, but that's what I want. I want my kids' childhood to feel as normal as it can, given the very strange circumstances that it will ultimately become.
That's pretty cool that you can, you know, get where you've been at and are at and can still do that. That's awesome.
But you have to, you know, that's a choice you have to make. And you lose a lot of things with that, in the sense of, like, there's so many cool opportunities that I have that maybe, you know, would be really, not really beneficial, but cool experiences or beneficial to my career that I pass on to do that for my kids. And my kids, stuff that my kids will probably really never even know outside of maybe if they see this one day. It's not something I'm bragging, like, oh, I'm such a good dad. You know, like, it's not that. It's just that I say this all the time, but, like, my kids didn't ask to be born. I made the choice to, like, it was my choice to bring them into the world, right? So it's, to me, it's
but
my
duty.
duty.
A lot of dudes don't put that together.
Right.
Like, I would want it, like, I want to sit here, my impulse here is to sit here and like, talk about how commendable it is that you have the philosophy you have. And one time my brother Danny, we were talking about someone saying how weird it was that people would routinely express almost in a surprising way, he's such a good dad. He's like, how
that's the exception.
How did we land in a spot where it's like worth pointing out? Like people are pointing out good dads.
Yeah.
He's like, wait, you mean I'm not sociopathic? That's great.
Dude, you're saying we're having a dad crisis right now. We're in the midst of a dad crisis.
Well, that's what he was like. He just was kind of just in this moment of like somewhat levity. He was kind of saying that it's funny that the bar seems to be rather low to become celebrated as a dad.
as just a dad who does what he's supposed to do.
Because people aren't getting married early enough.
Yeah. Before we began the show, we were talking about a dear friend of mine who sends me articles all the time pointing out that people are waiting till later, putting off getting married. You know, and it's distressing to him. He has 4 kids. It's distressing to him.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
He's like, those sons of bitches, they're getting away with something. I had him young, by God. And, you know, that's the way it ought to be.
Yeah.
But it is, man. It's like, it is cool they do that. And I think that it'll be an interesting trip for your kids to, it'll be an interesting trip when your kids start putting together this other world that they think of you as like some dude, like, no, and then he's gone, but he's always, you know, he's here. He's just whatever. And I remember with my own kids, they were not that old, man. It used to really bother them. Maybe like at 5, 6, 7 years of age. Mm-hmm. When they started putting together that we'd be in the airport or something and someone would come up to me.
Right.
And they didn't like it.
Really?
They were like defensive. They were like they were territorial. Now they're like totally cool about it. They don't, you know, when it happens, when it does happen, and if we go somewhere as a family, you know, we're like to have a layover, whatever.
They're used to it.
It'll be a little bit, and it doesn't. It doesn't even register with them.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, it's part of the thing.
Yeah, but at a time, I remember they were like, there's like as this was coming clear to them that there would be people that would like that their dad made something or wrote something, and people liked it.
Yeah.
And would come up unannounced. It brought out in them like a territorial instinct.
That's interesting.
Yeah, to be like, don't. Their kind of tendency was like, get away. Do you know what I mean? They didn't like that shit.
Sure.
And they wouldn't even have been able to articulate it, but just how they physically responded to it.
Right. I often wonder, like, you know, I've discussed with some other artist buddies that have kids, you know, and whose kids are a bit older than mine, you know, and I'm like, when do you like, is there a definitive moment where you have to like have the conversation with them? Like, hey, let me explain this to you. And so, but like, let me explain to you what's going on. And the reason I say that is because I've had a few artist buddies. It's like, well, you got to tell them as soon as they're able to understand, or someone else is going to.
Oh,
they're going to learn it from someone else. And you want to learn it from you. You want them to learn it from you, kind of. Like, you don't want them showing up at home one day and going, well, why do all my friends think it's cool that you're my dad?
Yeah.
Why are you different than everyone else's dad? You know what I mean? It's like, it's an interesting, I mean, it's obviously a niche problem, right? Like, there's not any books written on, you know, how to tell your kids that you're a famous musician or whatever it may be. You know what I mean?
There maybe should be one, but the audience would be small.
But
I think that it's what winds up being hard on them, and this, like, for me to be talking about this issue, we're talking about like a D list, whatever, like whatever the lowest level of celebrity a person can have is like where I'm at, right? And then you're like way, like
I wouldn't
what,
say
just-
way. I wouldn't
you're
say
like way up the ladder. But there's a thing that even no matter what winds up happening to the kids is there's a thing where it's like among peers or people around, there's this kind of like a little bit of a like, you ain't all that. Meaning that they'll encounter
resistance from other people.
They'll
because-
encounter like a you ain't, you think you're all that, or like you ain't just because your dad.
Right. And they may not think that at all, but the other people interpret
It'll be there. And
Right.
the point I'm making about if you sit down and were to talk to them, they're seeing things and forming impressions
such a fast
from
rate,
like
dude,
ambient
too. Yep.
things, ambient clues and cues.
Yep.
That is way faster than would be their ability that happens. That influx of inputs about what's going on in the world happens earlier than would be the ability for them to understand what you were trying to explain to them. Meaning, if you waited till they were, let's say something happened to you in the past, and you were able to like, and you lived a reality that was totally outside of your past. And at some point you need to say, hey, there's something I need to tell you about a thing that happened to me a long time ago, right? Like a long time ago, this crazy thing happened. At some point you might become aware of this and I want to explain it to you. In that case, you might be able to wait until you could have a rational conversation with your kids.
Right.
But if something's actively ongoing now, they're already on it before you'd be able to explain it to them.
Yep.
Meaning all their buddies like travel a certain way. And it'd be like, well, I get the feeling we can't really travel that way. Like it's kind of risky. And so we travel this very different way.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
they're on it, man. Like
No, for sure.
They're on it way ahead of their ability for you to sit down and talk to them about it. They've already like put
for
together
sure.
in their head that like there's something different when we go somewhere. Man.
Oh, for sure. And I think that, but
like, why don't we go to Chuck E. Cheese's?
yeah. Well, there's also like this inherent like innocence though, or like the situation that they're in is like their normal, and they almost think that everyone's situation is that too in some ways. Like I had an artist buddy who I'm pretty close with, and he was telling me about one of his kids being at school, and they're younger, you know, like we're talking like kindergarten-y, like first grade or whatever, you know, and they were talking to another kid, and this is like a conversation that the teacher had, I guess, with him or something, and I don't remember the exact specifics of how he heard about it, but it's like someone was talking, one of the kids was talking to his kid about something, and his kid was like, oh, well, what song does your daddy have on the radio, you know? And it was like, and the teacher kind of thought that maybe the child was like trying to slight the other child or something, but like it was really just like she just thought that everyone's dad was like sung on the radio because like her dad does. And my kids, like they'll see me on, or they'll see me and my wife, you know, like on an award show or something, like, you know, like, because when we go like to the CMA Awards or to the Grammys or something, like, you know, my parents or whoever will let the kids stay up and like watch because they know, you know, Dada's going to be singing on TV, you know.
What awards does your dad have? We got Employee of the Month.
Right, yeah.
And Ace Hardware last.
And I had another buddy who's a songwriter, and he was like, he said, you know, I had been over and like met his kids and stuff. We ate or whatever at their house, and I remember him telling me this. We were on a writing trip, and he was like, dude, my kids, like, they know that like me and you are friends, that I know you and stuff. And I was like, yeah. It's like, and he said, so the other night we're having dinner, and like it's like his daughter, so it's like, well, Dad, can we have Justin Bieber over for dinner? and he was like, what are you like, she just thought I knew every famous musician, that I could just call any of them and just have them over at any time because I know you. Like, so it's such an interesting, so they also like, they only understand the world in kind of this like tunnel vision-y, like whatever their surroundings are is how they kind of perceive everything at that age. So it's interesting too, like how that factors into the way things will become. And it worries me. It's like, you really got to steer. It's my job to kind of open that worldview up to like, hey, this thing isn't normal, but it doesn't make you better than anyone else.
Yeah. You're doing a way better job of explaining what I was trying to get at when I said that there's no aha moment.
No.
There's no moment when you come in and go like, hey, before you find out, I wanted to explain that I'm kind of like a famous musician.
There's no big bang of
because they're already
it all out.
They're already doing a thing, and they're already doing like there's going to be no. There's not like a no shit moment for them because they're just assembling it all. Mm-hmm. And I think that what I was trying to get at when I mentioned exposing your kids to just doing all the mundane stuff is later if they'd come to some realization that there is something weird, that their dad like makes TV shows or that their dad, writes books and other people read the books or whatever, does these kind of like seemingly unusual things. I just kind of want them to think like, oh man, the guy that like unplugs the toilets in the house, right. And like no one else will do it, but he has like like the guy like mom's not going to do that, and she'll wait, and dad's going to do that, like that guy. Like that's the feeling I want them to have later is to be like, the guy crawling around under the sink trying to figure out what's going on with something. Yeah, that dude.
Yeah, you guys want a picture of that guy?
That it's just like that's a thing. And maybe it's just only a problem I've created only in my head, but I just don't want there to be any sense of. I don't want I hate to have to think that your kids would develop a sense of exceptionalism.
Yes, that worries me and my wife a lot too. We want to make sure like it's really like we don't want them to be a product of their circumstances in a negative way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You see that all the time.
When we eat out, we'll make our kids. I'm not kidding you, man. We'll make them get down under the table and pick up if they've like dropped a bunch of French fries and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like they police the area. And like getting off a plane, they police the area.
Oh, dude, we do the same thing, man.
And it'd be like, this is not someone's responsibility, dude.
Right.
Like they'll come and pick up the plates and stuff. You are not leaving that shit on that booth.
I mean, all the things you guys are talking about too, though, like even for just Joe Schmo dad, it's like everyone's responsibility. Anybody, no matter who you are, like
for sure.
I'm trying to articulate.
No, you're right. Yeah, like why is
it's like everyone should be doing
again?
That
like why wouldn't you do all this?
Right.
But
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I guess it takes on like a sup.
I guess it's probably someone in our particular situation would worry that it would be easier for them to fall into just being a complete dirtbag.
Yes.
If left unchecked.
I guess
it would be easier for them to be like, oh, well, someone will come and get my coffee when I'm done. Someone will pick that up. That would be easier for them to end up at than it would be for like if your dad worked at a factory. You're closer to that finish line of being, a scumbag, pretty much. Like, if you start off,
there's a way you could maybe. There's a way. You know what it is, and dude, Chester, you're making a great point. Like, why would what we're talking about? Like, that should apply to everybody. It should apply to every kid, and every kid in America should like tighten up their spot when they leave a restaurant and not be like, well, they'll get it. Yeah. No kid in America should do it. I guess what I would worry about is there's probably a way for people of like people in a certain level of like financial stability, a certain level of connections, a certain level of a really good Rolodex, a certain level of like parental support. Like, oh, you want to do an internship at such and such place? Let me make some calls, right?
Nepotism.
Yeah, nepotism. That you'd be like, there's a pathway for your kids to realize one day that they probably could get away with that shit.
Yeah, cheat code.
Yeah, they're like, you know what? I cannot clean up my area. I cannot show up to work at 7 a.m. I cannot mow lawns and I can skip all that junk, and I'll probably be able to pull it together because my old man knows a lot of people. Mm-hmm. He'll figure. My parents will figure it out.
They'll bail me out.
Yeah,
right?
they'll figure it out. The college shit, like, I'll get letters of recommendation.
Right. Or dad could donate enough money to the scholarship fund or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know,
so you have a fear that they're going to be like,
that they're going to expect those things. Expect you to do things for them. Yeah.
I'm not cleaning up my booth.
Yeah. But yeah, that is where it starts, though. You know, that stuff leads into, like privilege, right? Like you think that you're almost entitled to. Well, dad should just call and figure this out for me. I expect that to happen.
Is it like kind of like a constant battle though? Like, because like obviously with guys like in your position, like you guys are exposed to some things that are not normal whatsoever. So like, is there like a inkling to like expose your kids in a way like, oh, this is really cool, but like you don't want to like overdo it kind of thing? Does that make sense? This is like, do you guys think about that? Like, yeah, like you guys have some like really cool opportunities.
I think there's unavoidably some of that stuff you have to do. Like I think about it every time, like, like my kids haven't been through like the regular airport. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And obviously they wouldn't even remember it if they did anyways, but like, and they haven't flown a bunch, but we've gone down, we've, chartered a plane to go down to Florida or something,
Yep.
And it's like that to them is normal. And
so
it's my job to explain to them that, hey man, this is not a normal thing. And it's super privilege to get to do this, but it's not something that you are necessarily entitled to. It's not something that you should feel like this is the standard and it's beneath me to go to the airport or, so you have to like inherently your kids will be exposed to those things. Sometimes not by choice, right? But the cool opportunities too, it's like I do ride the line, and I was thinking about this before you said it. It was like when you were talking about, well, dad's got this cool Rolodex and, he can call this guy or that guy. You get to the line too where like you try everything you can to make sure that your kids turn out to be decent, humble people. That's the goal for me and my wife with our boys, is to make them respectful and we want them to just ultimately be good people, right? But as the dad, your dad instinct comes in too, and you're like, well, I want to give them every advantage that I can because that's also a fatherly instinct as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's a trap built in a little bit too, where you could go, well, I've got to call that school and see if I can pull some strings to get my kid in because I'm their dad.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's like you ride that razor's edge too of like, you don't want it to turn into a nepotism thing, but just your fatherly instinct is to do everything you can for your kids. And would everyone else not do that as well? Would everyone else not go, well, if I thought my kid was right on the line of getting into Stanford or wherever it is, some Ivy League school, obviously they're not going to get, if they got a 2.0 grade point average, they're not going to get in. But if they're right on the line anyways, due to their own achievements, do you as a dad call and go, hey, what can I do to help my child? Mm-hmm. Is there something I can do?
Is there a chance I could pardon them for federal tax evasion and weapons charges?
But then
because as a dad,
right? But then I wonder too, like, what if your kid found out later on down the line? Like, let's say you decide as a parent, I'm not going to help them at all with this, which I can understand. I can understand you going, no, dude, it needs to be a merit-based thing, and I get that, and it should be, I think. And then they don't get it, and they're crushed, dude. And that, like, that's the meteorite that, like, knocks the ship off course.
It'd be bitterness.
And then they go, my dad could have called and done something for me, and he didn't do that. But then we're getting back to, do they expect things that they shouldn't expect?
Yeah.
So it's like it's kind of like
it's tough.
But that's just being a parent, dude. Being a parent is just you're making the best decisions that you think you are making for your kids, and that's all you can do. you know.
It's real easy to worry about all that stuff.
It
you know?
is, man. It is.
It's just like,
Yeah.
just try to do the best you can, you know?
Yeah. We're now into the turkey regulations of parenting.
Yep.
We dive very deep.
Chili, I want to answer the question you asked about like presenting with opportunities.
Yeah.
And I catch myself doing a combo deal, like a definite combo deal.
So
Meaning,
you keep track?
no, meaning this. Like, let me give you a scenario that hasn't happened. Let's say I met someone and they're like, "Hey, man, my cousin owns an island in the Seychelles, and no one's ever there. You guys should go spring break on this private island in the Seychelles. And in fact, his cousin has a little charter business, and they'll fly y'all out there." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go like, damn it, I'm not taking my kids to that island in the Seychelles because I don't want them to, like, that's not available to anyone.
Right.
So I wouldn't do that. I would have that in my mind. I'd be like, man, you know what we should do? I'd go say to my wife, like, it's going to sound crazy, but we can go to this like island in the Seychelles where this dude has his place and no one's there. And he said we could go hang out there. So we would go, but when we're there, we'd be like eating shit that we caught out of the rocks. Do you know what I mean? Or if there was a lime tree or, you know what I mean? We'd be like, man, we're going to go out. We're going to get those limes. We're going to squeeze all the lime juice out of them. We're going to catch some crabs down there. And we're going to, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to like make stuff and do hands-on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see the process of going from nothing, just like what's here, to we're going to have like a little meal.
Totally.
And so it doesn't, meaning there's like practical skill and element to it and like getting a little bit uncomfortable, but I wouldn't be able to turn down the thing. And so when I say like a combo deal, it would be that like we every spring break, we go down to the beach in Baja every spring break. For when we make lunch, we're making fish that we shot because we climb in the water and go spearfishing. Yeah. It's very luxurious, but it's like there is a little bit of element of scrappiness.
Yeah.
We build a little scrappiness into it.
Right. Built some adversity. Yeah. Built in adversity.
Yeah, like you build in a little, like a little something that kind of needs to be paid attention to, and it's a little dicey, right? Mm-hmm. And you whatever. It's so, but I can't say that I turned down. I can't say that I turned down sort of opportunities that would show them whole parts of the world or parts of global experience. Right. I don't go like, I'm not going to show that to you.
Gotcha.
I don't want you to feel like you got a leg up.
Right.
But I'll take them there. And when I take them there, I try to, I don't know, man, I try to keep the experience grounded and respectful and real, and also try to point out that this is exceptional.
And hopefully they realize, though, how they got on that vacation in the first place. Because you guys worked hard, very hard, to get into the positions you're at. And I think kids might realize that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I would never, ever, like, that they got to pick up on. I would never say that.
Right. But I think they do pick up on that.
Yeah. I think to say it, to articulate it, I worked hard for this.
Right.
Like, to articulate it, I think there's too much chance of backfire. It's like I kind of trust they have to just see it.
Right.
I hope that they notice. Yeah. I can't picture how you bring it up.
But you're also trying to, like, we talked about this, touched on it a little bit earlier. It's like you want them to see you working hard.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I want
100%.
I want my kids to, come to the studio and see. It's like, oh, well, the records don't just. It doesn't take 5 minutes to make the records. It takes a year to make them. And there's a lot of other people that do a lot of hard work too. It's not me. Like my face is on the CD, but there's an army of people that make this possible. There's a lot of people with a lot of skills that are a part of everything that I do, whether it's on the road or in the writing room or in the studio. Like I am just a small part of the thing. there are so many more incredibly talented people involved in what I do other than just me.
Yeah.
I want my kids to see that too. You know what I mean? Because, you know, that you hear the whole "it takes a village" thing. I think life takes a village too, right? Like your own life, not just raising your kids, but your own life too. Like appreciating the people that you have in the journey with you and how much they contribute to your success as well.
Yep.
And you have a great team around you, man. I think that's what I love about being out here. It's like, you know, it's always the same guys, and that says a lot about what it is. There's not a lot of turnover. I've been out and done a lot of stuff with you guys, man, and it's like it's always the same guys, and that's the way my thing is, you know, for the most part. I mean, there's very, very low turnover in my world, and that's very rare in the music business.
I remember, I think one of the earliest things that struck me when I met you is I was like, man, this guy has a lot of loyalty to his bus driver.
Love,
Like
dude.
it's like your best friend.
He's the man, dude. Yeah, but I mean, he drives me. I mean, my life is in his hands while I'm asleep, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, no, you respect. Like, I can tell it. You had a lot of respect for the dude. You know,
appreciate what he does, and you know, I think that's the cool thing about, you know, being in, you know, the position that I'm lucky to be in is, you know, you can impact so many people in a positive way, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can bring everybody along for the ride. You know. Like you can improve so many people's lives. If you give a shit enough to do that, you can easily do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, you know, a lot of my friends, man, like we're in this thing together, man. And now a lot of my buddies are really successful, not just with my thing, but with other things now, because we all went through the door together, man. Like the success door opened for all of us.
Yeah.
When I got my deal and my thing took off, like I wanted to help my buddies, like, let's all get in here and do the thing, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just go through myself. Like, imagine having all the success and nobody to share it with.
Yeah.
What fun would there be in that? I can't imagine going on the road and not caring about the guys in my band. But that happens. There's guys that are like, oh, well, yeah, it's this guy, yeah, whatever. You play the guitar, great. I don't hang out with him. I don't know him. Don't really care to that much.
Yeah.
But that's a thing that happens, which is baffling to me. You know, I can't imagine, because I'm such a people person. I'm such a friends guy. I love being around people and interacting with them, and you know, obviously I want it to be, you know, people that I like, genuine folks. You know, I would say, but that's so much fun, dude. I mean, you guys have fun on these trips, man. They're work trips. And there's times to you that I'm sure it feels like work coming out here and doing these things, but ultimately you go, man, if this is the worst day, if you had the worst day you could have on a MeatEater trip, it's better than the best day for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's mostly because of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you were stuck here all day, it's raining all day on the turkey hunt like it is today, and you couldn't do anything, and you hated everyone that was out here too. At least here you could sit around and joke and laugh and,
Yeah.
you know, eat food together and tell stories and just enjoy each other's company. But there's guys on the road who maybe they have a bad day on the road and they don't even have any friends out there at all, dude. They just have people that work for them that are around.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just out there by their lonesome, just being miserable. I couldn't imagine what that's like. Because when I have tough days, I at least have people that I can turn to, you know, and talk to about it, that understand and that actually care.
Yeah.
To listen to, and they care about how I'm feeling, or I care about how they're feeling. You know, that atmosphere I think is so important. You know, and you guys have that, so that's why I like being around you guys. You guys have that too, at least from the outside perspective. It seems like you do. You know, which is neat.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You ready to wrap up? Oh, go ahead.
You got any new records or anything that you can talk about that you're?
I don't.
No.
I don't. I really don't, man.
Where are you at in the cycle? Where are you at in the cycle?
I'm at the point now, like I'm about to go in the studio for the first session on cutting my next record. So we'll try to cut probably anywhere from, like, you know, in a worst case scenario 4, best case 6.
And how many do you have? How many do you have the seed for? Like, you know, like some weeks I wonder if I should start a new trash bag, like at least that far along.
Oh, how many, how full is the trash bag, right? I would say right now, I mean, songs that are in serious contention to make the record, I mean, 40 to 50 that are like.
Really?
And you got to whittle that down to.
You got to whittle it down.
That's
and
like
then you're
making a calendar.
And then you're getting in like heavyweight, like it's like heavyweight fights because all the songs, like you really like all of them.
Juan, you're sitting on a pile of 40 to 50?
Oh, damn it. Listen, it's
I thought you'd say 15. 20, I don't know.
15 would be finished. We're done.
Well, no, it doesn't. I thought you got to get rid of a few maybe, you know?
Well, I think now people are putting out bigger and bigger records. That's been a trend, as the streaming economy has taken off.
Oh, that's driven
bigger. It's for sure.
That drives more tunes.
Well, it's driving, now because instead of selling a physical CD, right? Like back in the day, you were limited by how many songs could be on a CD.
Yeah.
And so then, if you start putting out a double CD, back then you got to start charging people double. Because now there's 2 discs in there that you've purchased and packaging and special cases and all that stuff.
Got it.
So you feel like that will impact sales because the consumer goes, well, I don't want to pay twice as much for this album.
Yeah.
So that limited people from putting too many songs on their record because they didn't want to risk not selling as many by having too many songs because then people had to pay twice as more for it.
Yeah, like
now you can
use your Illusion 1 and 2.
Right. Now you've got, and I think country is the first genre that has really started putting out these big hit records where there's a bunch of songs on them.
Like Morgan's records have been.
Yeah. His next record's 37, I think. 37 songs.
How many?
37. And then Zach Bryan, I think, did 36, and those guys and it's a brilliant strategy, right? Because your album sales are, it's based off of its stream equivalents.
Yeah, and I guess
right?
That's a great point that I never thought about, man, is you're talking about like, because you strip away the physical component.
You strip away the physical component, so now there's stream equivalency, right? So I think someone's probably going to crush me for this statistic, but I believe it's 100,000 streams to count for one physical sale of the album.
Yeah.
So songs over the aggregate of the entire album, every 100,000 streams equates for you paying $12.99 for the CD.
So it went from 12 listens used to rack up a sale. Now it's
I've got a long way to go.
But I think the wild thing is,
you haven't sold a record yet, Chester.
Here's where you get to. Here's where you get to. The question of so now it's like when you think about it that way, if every 100,000 spins is a record sale, right? Well, if I put out a record that has 12 songs on it, and it still takes 100,000 spins to get a sale, or if I put a record out with 39 or 40 songs on it, I'm gonna get a lot more. I'm gonna get a lot more listens.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I'm gonna sell more albums. There may be the same amount of hits on the 40-song record as there is the 12-song record. But the 40-song record is going to sell more just because more people are consuming all 40 songs as opposed to 12.
Casting a wider net.
Casting a wider net, right? So it's a brilliant strategy, but it's a strategy.
Dude, I'm somehow I'm like oblivious to this, man.
And it's like
it kind of demonstrates my age because I remember, like you said, like I just like came of age during the time when you
just bought.
Like
CDs.
when people like operated that way.
Right.
And I always tell people it was so funny, man. I remember being in speech and debate in college, like my 3rd year of college. I was in a speech and debate class. And I'm not shitting you. This is like, I remember a kid he had to do a persuasive speech. You know what his persuasive speech was?
What?
That you should give up on cassette tapes and switch to CDs.
He was right. That bastard was right, dude.
For me to be like, how many songs are on an album, you could kind of tell, like, you kind of date me because, like, I just think of it as being, like an album's like 10, 12 songs.
Well, I wondered too, like, I'll probably get roasted on this one too, but I'm not certain, at least that there wasn't previously, to my knowledge, really a cap on it. Like there isn't a cap on it, and to some extent that will become an issue. Because what if I put out a song with a record with 100 songs on it? Is that still one album?
Yeah.
Like where does it end? Like there has to be
Like because you'll hit the most streamed album, and someone will be like, dude, because there's 200 songs on the sumbitch.
Exactly. Exactly right. But and it's like you can't slide anyone that's doing it because it's you're just you figured out how to play the game the best. Right? It's no different than like the wildlife regulations to some extent.
Yeah.
It's like you're talking about the bear hunt, right? It's like everybody we just did the thing and we did it really good and we did it too good and oops.
Yeah.
But like right now we're just kind of in such a it's such like international waters with like the streaming thing because all the litigation and policies are like super outdated. From payouts to streams to converting those to sales, like they just haven't figured out how to quite make it line up yet because it's all still so new to everyone, and so now people are doing, they're playing the version of the game that's best suited for where we stand right now because nobody's like, hey, you shouldn't do that. No one said you can only have 24 songs on an album, so why not put 40?
Yeah.
Or why not put 45? Or why not put 50? Or why not put 75? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's the thing is like, will there ever be an end to it or won't there be? I don't know if we'll ever know the answer to that, but I would think at some point there kind of would have to be, There's the point where you're going to burn out the consumer too. If you put out a 100-song record, people are going to be like, how do I even listen to this?
Who makes that decision?
The artist usually.
If there was to be a cap put on it.
I mean, sometimes it's the government. I mean, sometimes it's the streaming services. Sometimes it's the labels. I mean, there's all sorts of, there's lobbyists like there is for anything else, right?
Yeah.
People getting together and going, well, I think there should only be, 12 songs on a record. That should be it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know that stuff. I don't claim to, but
You know what winds up being a governing function? Now we're losing another extreme of the listeners now.
we're going down.
The guys that were way into Turkey, Rex,
They're like, what are we
they're
talking
like,
about?
The publishing and record business is not interesting to me.
Yeah.
But remember, you were talking about like what Grammys mean, right?
Right.
How that system works.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling you another system that's just not the way people think it is the New York Times bestseller list.
Right.
And I've benefited from it and I've been screwed by it. But it is not a count up of what sold. It is not a representation of what sold best.
Right. Correct.
There's all these value judgments based in
weighted scoring and stuff.
Weighted scoring, directional value judgments, vengeance on the part of traditional media, vengeance against new media,
Right.
Like levels of hate, levels of animosity between one world and then like online booksellers.
Right. It's like pseudo politics. It is really it's its own political thing. It's very intricate.
Yeah.
But unless you're in that business, from the outside looking in, you just have no clue.
Yeah, and when you talk about it governing, who would govern it, or Seth asking, who would ever say what's okay or not okay? The list still the New York Times bestseller list still matters. Mm-hmm. And you can have it be why not just do whatever you want when it comes to publishing? You need to approach certain projects. If you want to make that list and benefit from being on that list, you need to approach projects in a certain way to hit is an audio book what they regard to be an audio book, or is it something different? Right. Mm-hmm. So you go why would you ever need to conform to a certain protocol? Is you can get too far outside of the lines, right. and then these independent parties that legally, obviously they can do whatever they want. They invented the list. you can do things that put you not able to be captured by the list. And it's good to be on the list, because if you get on the list, people, other bookstores order the book.
Yeah.
Right? It gets traction.
Sure.
And so you could go too far out there in some direction, like format-wise or how you sell it, how you distribute it, and you get it where you're no longer relevant to that thing, and that thing matters. So it winds up being like a little bit of a gravitational pull,
right,
to be like, to conform to some set, industry standard. And you're saying, like, if you made an album that has 200 songs on it, some body like that might say, that's not an album. I don't know what that is, but that's not an album.
Right.
And that's not eligible to win album of the year, because it's not.
I guess what I'm saying is that set of rules doesn't exist currently.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There is no right now. So you've got people like kind of forming the rules, and and I mean, ultimately it's up to the fans, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, ultimately whatever resonates with them is what people are going to listen to. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. It's like it's interesting how all that stuff works. And the record business is wild. Music business is wild. There's so many intricacies. Sure, like the publishing world is just, there's so many things that you would never think of.
Mm-hmm.
From outside perspectives, you write a good book and then put it out, and then it's a good book and people like it. But it's not that simple.
Yeah.
And record business is like that as well. You know what I mean? Like, then I think the record
I haven't
business,
found that you can get around that, but there's just a lot of other stuff laid on top of it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Record business is the same way. Great records will, ultimately people will discover and listen to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A great record's a great record. And, it's all subjective too, right? Like, what do people like, right? A great record, great country record, some people are going to hate it because they just don't like country music, A great record's a great record, and you can just tell, And I'm sure books are no different.
Would be an interesting set of numbers, two numbers, would be like, what % of great records aren't recognized, and what % of shitty records are over recognized?
Sure. There's some of that. I'm sure there's some of that for sure.
Yeah.
But then it's like, if those quote unquote shitty records are huge, are they just shitty records to you?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Someone else, they're
Highly
great
subjective,
records.
yeah.
It's highly subjective. Same with books, right? Like, I'm sure there's all these incredibly underappreciated books out there that, if you're a literary guy, that you're like, well, how do you not know that book? I'm sure there's those, right?
There was someone, we gotta wrap this up and get serious about getting outside, but do you remember the musician? He's from a while ago, but do you remember the musician Elvis Costello?
Yep.
Okay. I swear it was like David Lee Roth or someone that said this. But he was like Elvis Costello was always like a critical favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Like, critics always loved his albums.
Mm-hmm.
And David Lee Roth was observing that, but rock critics all look like Elvis Costello. So like the level of bias that goes
right. Yeah.
They all got the same style,
Yeah.
Like Elvis Costello, like, had those big like glasses and stuff. He's like, yeah, but they like him because they look at him like, that son of a bitch looks like me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an album like made for those kind of guys. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, like made for the dudes that write articles about albums.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dudes that just listen to them.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, Luke, thanks for coming on the show as usual, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
I appreciate all that, but I especially appreciate what you shared about raising kids.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this dude I know in New York, he had spent his career working in family law, like the kind of family law of families breaking up.
Ugh, I'm sure that's tough business.
And he probably doesn't even remember telling me this. It was so long ago. And when he told me this, I didn't even have kids, but it stuck in my head. He was just talking about all the awful things that he's encountered in his career, of like dissolving families,
sure,
custody battles and stuff. And we were somehow talking about things that screw kids up.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so speaking from a level of expertise, he said, I'll tell you the one thing that screws them up is the day they figure out that no one gives a shit about them.
Ooh.
And he's like, that is the thing.
Oh man, wow.
More than any other thing.
Yeah.
You know? And what better to bring that out than a
right.
splitting up parents who are not trying to suck them in, but splitting up parents who are trying to
get the other
get
parents
clear.
to take them.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
yeah, get like parent. Imagine that when you put together, like talking about how perceptive kids are when you put together, like, wait a minute.
They're both trying to
they're
give
trying
me the
to
other
pull
one.
away,
Right,
and not come in.
Right.
You know, you'd want to be in there. Your parents throwing punches trying to get you.
Yeah.
It's probably not great either. But
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, it's probably not healthy, but
it's probably not
legal
the
punches,
yeah.
dude. Throwing legal punches.
punches.
Dude. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
Again.
Absolutely.